Set Num, offering a bit of a discussion, looking at the After Tarot and a little bit of the Rider-Waite deck. So paying attention to where are you and how can you move forward mindfully. So exploring your ability to manifest your own reality and trusting that you have the power to create and co-create. And ideally, we take the time to integrate your highest potential and exploring your highest frequency in order to make a decision and processing the information you have to move forward with integrity. And sometimes we have different levels of understanding or different levels of skill set, and that needs to be taken into account when making decisions. So we will look at the court cards in the After Tarot deck. So the After Tarot deck is a little different than the Rider-Waite. So when we look at the Tower card in the Rider-Waite deck, it's this unwanted change, or this change, it's this split. If you're looking at a couple, it's like something is shaken up, right? It's like that snow globe shaken up. We don't know how it will settle. In the Tower, in the After Tarot, the change has already been made, and now it's about standing on your 2 feet and walking a new path, right? Bats, kind of like the cat's out of the bag, but here it's bats. So as always, use your own level of understanding. This isn't an exhausted look at the court cards or the After Tarot. It's just tidbits of information. We'll see what Spirit has to say when we flip the cards. But again, looking at change. And when you're manifesting, you're making this wish, you're like moving forward, whether you are making a wish to Spirit or you're just like want to get your own way, where are you coming from with that? So when we look at I Dream of Jeannie, she has this like, yes, master, I will give you everything, master. And it's cute, it's loving, it's innocent, but she is also going out of her way always to please. So kind of keep this idea in mind of when you are making a choice, are you making it with heart? Are you making that choice to make someone else happy? Aladdin, and I'm looking at thinking of Aladdin, like the 90s Disney version. That's the version I know, so you might find another opportunity here. But there's one scene or overall theme in that movie that stands out. Robin Williams, the genie, is encouraging Aladdin to have integrity, to be honest about who he is. Of course, that's not what Aladdin wanted to do. No, it's not. He wanted to put on a facade. So noticing what you're asking for, is it to cover up something within? And how is Spirit asking you to live with integrity? And something about like the grass is greener when I was drawing this, like the idea of grass is greener on the other side, but no, there's a lot of light within your own heart. And then looking at the Fairly Odd Parents, and I haven't watched this TV show in a while. My daughter used to watch it, so it was kind of like in the background of life at one point. And what I got from the little bit that I did watch is that they communicate together. So the fairies are always like working with Timmy to help him in the situations he's in, and Timmy actually has to think about the situation. Like he processes through, and the 3 of them kind of work together because the fairies have a certain like rule. They have their rule book, right? And so they have to follow rules, no different than Spirit. There's free will. They can't intervene unless you ask. And then Timmy works to think out and strategize. So consider communication with guys. Consider how to map it all out. And the frequency of where you're coming from is important. So consider that. All right, so let's look at these changes. And let's look at the court cards specifically in the after tarot. Again, not an exhausted look. And this is just a possibility in a moment. So you could see this as a pick a card, but take what feels right for you. So what level are you operating from? What level of awareness, knowledge, skill set? And that changes day by day, moment by moment. And that's why I think dialing in your frequency is so important. So taking a look at the page. The page is learning, okay? They're an apprentice. And notice there's this offering, this working together in a grounded place, right? This offering. So the offering coming on the material plane, so taking action on the material plane, or that passion. Notice it's this, like, I get this sense that whatever was tried with passion didn't work the first time the way it was wanted, the way it was expected. But it's about coming back to home base, working with spirit again, and trying again, right? This idea of harvesting the opportunity and learning. They keep telling me Rider-Waite deck, and they were telling me that before. So maybe there is this cross comparison that needs to happen. So it's this, the step hasn't been made versus the step was made. And that's okay. Sometimes you do have to go back to the drawing board, right? Sometimes you have to go back to the drawing board. This one usually stands out to me a lot as far as the Page of Swords. And I hear readers talk about the Page of Swords as like that snooping energy, you know, that someone's out snooping on. And for me, this is the boundaries card, because if there is someone that's, you know, hacking, stalking, anything like that, it's a time to draw boundaries. And notice that the sword here is cutting through the cloud. So there's this degree of separation versus up to bat to make, that's an up to bat kind of stance, right? So noticing that. And the Page of Cups, like, it's like spilling the beans. It's learning to communicate your emotions, and can you communicate them effectively? So when it comes to making that offer on the material plane, can you learn kindly and allow yourself to integrate or put aside your emotions? You have to learn from the emotions to make that offering. Notice who's coming through to you and what layer. Like, sometimes people will teach you as in, like, that's an example, like, of what I'm not going to do. And some people teach you by that's an example I'm going to do. But it's within your own heart and soul that you make that choice. And trusting that you have friends around you to help you. But some of that is more dynamic, a different dynamics than you. When you're working here, there's a different dynamics to be aware of on the spiritual plane, to gather information, to gather new insights. And it's important to both discern and understand that there's free will at play. What are you offering? What are you giving? And who to? And so making that offering to spirit, that might mean sitting down and creating an altar, a prayer request, writing a letter, that sort of thing, as part of the foundation of your garden of what you want to grow. But trust that even though there might be this fumble, so to speak, when you make that choice, but to continue, don't let that stop you. A breakup doesn't stop you from starting a new relationship. Doing your best to understand spirit's requests. It looks like a heart, and it also looks like one of those those things in a comic book where they have the words that you're communicating your passions. That there's also learning involved. You have to get your hands messy. You have to give it a try. You can't think your way through life. Okay. And how can you clearly communicate what you need? And that takes time to discern, time to understand, time to understand. Sometimes too, our emotions kind of flip out, right? We have those flip out moments. I've been that. I've been that. So, you know, letting some of it, you don't want to clam up, but you have to start somewhere in releasing the emotions. That you can't let that fear hold you captive, but slowly begin to trust. Like, perhaps it takes time, a few notches on the belt before you understand how to communicate. And by notches on the belt, I'm not saying add to your numbers in the bedroom. As an example of, it's not one-sided, there's not one way, and we slowly learn and look back through those layers of what you have learned. Okay. And notice this has got some pride here, right? Pride in presenting something, right? And it feels to me like that trot, that trot of coming through, that some things have been thought out and some things have been processed. And there could still be more work to do, but that doesn't stop the night from coming in to make that offer. And making sure that those passions come from a deeper place and you're not skipping over any information that needs to be looked at, right? You are that. And this night has a lot of confidence, but still on the beginning stages of working through. And this Knight of Swords, you know, likes to pick a fight. And just because there is something to communicate, there are emotions from this change, right? Doesn't mean that you go picking the fight with everyone around, right? Notice, you know, this battlefield of your own emotional response, that you're not creating baggage and damage around you. The Knight is usually this knight in shining armor that offers, but instead, notice this knight is drinking from their own cup. So is there, you know, is there selfishness? Is there receptivity? Is there a Six of Cups energy? Or is this a wallowing in self-pity kind of energy that's happening here? See if that kind of helps you to understand there, this difference of this elegant walk through, but needing to go with the flow, the river of emotions. And look at that, yeah, there are more fish in the sea. There are other opportunities looking forward, but you can't. Yeah. Okay, so when you drive, you check right and left. Notice this, the gaze here is at the viewer. It's here at us. You do a check right or left before going forward, right? To make sure that you're proceeding safely. But really the focus needs to be both within and forward. There could be this protective energy. So that selfishness, that's what it is. It's that movie Blind Spot was coming to mind. I was trying to process what that meant. There could be a protective energy that's happening when someone is just constantly, giving to themselves versus going within or sharing externally. So maybe those emotions are bottled up based on something of the past, some conditioning of the past. That's funny. All right. Looking at the Queen. Notice this Queen is looking at themselves. And some of that is good. You have to go within and look at and take harvest of your own energy. Is this rabbit running out of fear, or is it moving forward? This reminds me of lettuce for some reason, like a lettuce wrap. Is there a firm foundation Is this about mirroring and going within, or is this about vanity? And in the Sleeping Beauty, and I'm going from the Disney version, like the old school one, she would scry. She had the scrying mirror. Mirror, mirror on the wall, who's the fairest of them all? The checkpoint is internal. The checkpoint is not external. And are you using your resources in vain or to serve the greater good? Is it from a grounded place? Make sure that you're in a grounded place and you see the bigger picture. If you're so looking at yourself, like there's this delicate balance about going internally and noticing what's happening around you. Don't trip yourself up in your focus. If you are the queen, you trust yourself, and you trust what you have to offer and give yourself. So there is that reciprocity inward, like of trusting your firm foundation, because the grass is where you're at. The grass is where you water it. Where's your attention? Where's your focus in the material? This Queen of Wands, she looks so focused and determined. So much that the intuition, the cat, looks back at her, right? Like waiting for that, where do we go next? Waiting for instructions. So the communication with your guides, your communication with spirit, going both ways to create that transformation, right? That it'll follow your lead, no different than the genie. It follows your lead of where you direct it, of where your mind goes. And so what do you want to feed? Okay? What do you want to feed? You want to feed your fears? You want to feed love? Do you want to feed your dreams? Or do you want to stay captive? Like there's an opportunity to transform. Okay? Keep your head up high. High vibe. And again, grounded, like your feet are really standing out. So perhaps that could be a shadow aspect of the queen in this place, is making sure no matter where you're at on the board that you are grounded and know your place, know your role. And some of that is going in. Notice that she's not captive. Like, I know these are like tassels, like a bracelet, but to me that reminds me of like handcuffs, of like she's broken through the chains and creating her own reality. And I love that it's like this lighthearted energy, that this transformed energy of lightness to communicate with love, with air, with the ethers, with the spirit. That it's like she's rising above. She is making it happen. She's transcended. And this has such a loving energy. The Queen of Cups, when she shows up, you're like, ooh, we don't know what we're gonna get, right? But this is this reflective, compassionate gaze that's at middle ground. It's at middle ground. So there's this neutral place between action and intuition, light and dark, day and night. And she's holding it at heart center. She's processing, she's looked at it, she's opened it up to see what's in there, and there's help around her. It's not clammed up, already dove into the emotional response and processed it. And I get the sense it's happening at a positive level. Notice that this, not only, it doesn't actually look as much like the clouds as the queen of like up in the clouds in that light ether, but notice it's almost like this checkered board of like, okay, I know where I'm at, I know how to play my game. Or I see the game that someone else is playing, perhaps. And interesting too, one fish is down. So what emotions don't serve that need to be released? versus which need to be honored. That gateway of emotions has been taken versus transformed, fixed in passion, fixed in the material. Slow it down. Slow it down, let's say. The queen can be tricky. And the king can be tricky. So is there a fight? Is there drudgery? Is the hard work being done? And how is the hard work being done? Right? It's time to take action in the material, but are you doing it to like bulldoze in and charge in like a ram? Or is it more like tending the garden and doing the work to harvest? And you know, when we look at grapes, you can think of wine. That takes time. Takes time to materialize, and the king knows that. The king takes the time to do it right, but still has to take action. This sense of working together in harmony, knowing who's on your side, knowing who and what energies to work with. Perhaps it is, animal spirits, sowing seeds and watching the harvest. Versus the King of Wands, there's this sense of like, it's all in his hands to transform the energy and work with the passions. Notice there are layers, internal and external. And by the artist showing us this, it's like he knows it, right? The energies move fast internally, but externally they might move at a different place as it cycles. But he's not held captive to it, open to receive it. It's a green light to go and ready to make that change and go with that. So I said that fast because I thought of cheetah. Cheetah runs fast. And while a lizard can move fast and scurry away, notice how it's in a cycle. So it's that turning cycle, turning the dial, allowing transformation, allowing new skin to grow. Pieces of the past no longer stop this king from owning his truth and making the change and growing. Rather than speaking, this king, think of the Midas touch, like the sword is down, is listening to the messages received rather than speaking. When the sword is in hand, that tells me there's this action and it's like ready to speak it out. Where this king is cloaked and listening to the falcon who can see the bigger picture to transcend the energy. And he is grounded to receive that information. Listen wisely. While his feet are on the earth, there's still the sense of embodied presence in the clouds and the heavens with strength. But regard to the bigger picture, he's looking out and around. And notice the couple. So there might be some bit of a reflection on the past. If it was, the tower moment was a two, could be parents, it could be different relationships. There's a sense of reflecting on the thoughts that are turning before taking any action. This king is sorting through and processing the emotions, what need to go, what needs to go. Rotten tomato. This made me think of tomatoes, rotten tomatoes. Like it's not all bad. But when you go in, it's sifting through and looking what was bad, what was good. There's not the sense of the feet, it's almost like scales. Like tipping, there's no scales to tip of what's good and bad, right and wrong. It's what, you know, that inner critic in the emotional response. It's sorting through the inner critic of the emotional response, to let that go, to ride a new wave. So if there's like this gust of emotion, where is it coming from? Is it coming from the critic that's evaluating it, or is this deeper understanding to shed that layer? There's an opportunity through the emotions, and it might be a bit messy for this king. But is willing to let the ship sail to make that change. It's a golden opportunity to go into the emotions, to learn what is possible for true happiness and compassion. It's right there around the neck, the truth and the heart. It's right in between the two, but the inner critic has to die down in order to receive that. The emotions have to be sifted through and cleaned out to receive that. Okay, so I do hope this served well. I wasn't sure how this was going to come through. And if, you know, explore your own insights over anything I could say, and be willing to walk in or walk away and come from a higher place, whatever feels right for you to connect and make the steps that you need to make the changes, from high ground, from both. It's this balance of like grounded place to know where you're at, trusting what's coming in for you, but also coming from high vibes, like you could see from above. Oh my gosh. Margaret Cho's, she makes fun of her mom, and one of the things that she makes fun of is from her mom astral projecting, coming in and being like, you got a messy house. I don't know where that came from, but sharing it in case that seems to fit. Or maybe that's what it means by higher ground. Where can you see above when you need to clean up? And it's on you, it's not on the other. Sending lots of love and light. Thank you for listening.